Hello, welcome to Take 10 on Tuesdays with the Tennessee Tribune. I'm Sandra Long Weaver. I'm the Editorial Director for the Tennessee Tribune. And our guest today is State Representative Brenda Gilmore. Hello.
Hello there, and thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real honor that you would think I have something worthwhile to say to be invited back 5 times.
Yes, absolutely. And this is our 5th year where we're going to talk about what has gone on in Tennessee involving the state legislature, a little bit about the city Metro Council, and even a little bit about the presidential election, because it all ties together.
Okay.
I think this year, 2016, has been an exciting year, even more so than we could have predicted. So let's start with the presidential election a little bit and talk about the surprise that President-elect is Donald Trump. And now I think the statistics show that 2/3 of the country is now governed by Republican governors. The state, the national, the Congress, and the Senate are both dominated by Republicans. There's a Republican in the White House, and the state legislatures are dominated by Republicans. And here in Tennessee, it is a supermajority.
Right.
So what is it that we can look forward to? How does the President-elect Trump trickle down to what may go on in Tennessee?
Well, you're exactly correct. And when we look at the last election, I guess it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it was, I tell people, it was the perfect storm coming together. The coalition that Secretary Clinton expected to have just did not turn out in the numbers and the percentage that she needed. And the coalition that Mr. Trump was able to pull together came out in more enthusiastic numbers. And so that made the huge difference. There were other factors, I think, but those are the 2 biggest causes, I think, that propelled him to win the presidential election. So what can we expect? Well, all of the southern states legislatures, the general assemblies, are Republican.
Okay.
In most cases, they're supermajorities. In Tennessee, there's a supermajority. In fact,
you picked up one.
Yes, the Republicans picked up 1 seat. Down in Dixon, Tennessee, we had a Democrat that decided not to run, and a Republican won that election. So they increased their ranks. We were the fighting 26, so now we're the fighting 25, which is the Democrats in the House. And so what I expect we will see is more emphasis on charter schools, community schools, more vouchers, more emphasis on guns, and maybe...
Now you say on guns, how so?
Well, already in Tennessee, during the 2015-2016, we approved guns in parks. And we approved for employees to carry guns to their workplaces. However, they had to keep them in a secure place, such as the trunk of their car or somewhere secured. And I expect that during a new 110th General Assembly, which will be a 2-year period, that we will have more emphasis on freedom of guns. Most of the guns advocates are going to want people to carry them. You have laws where you can carry them. They can be seen.
And open carry.
Yes. It will probably be more emphasis on carrying guns into schools, more emphasis on carrying them onto college campuses, and so just generally more freedom for gun advocates.
Okay, so we can look for more discussion on that. That will be interesting. Okay.
And Tennessee also lifted, we did have a ceiling on the number of charter schools.
Yes.
It was 25. That has been lifted. So we expect an explosion of charter schools. And charter schools in themselves are not bad. There are some good charter schools and there are some bad charter schools.
Exactly.
It's just that they're so new across the country, not just Tennessee, that we don't really have a good report card to report over a consistent basis that they've been good for the community.
For the community, for the students, and what the records are.
Right. And we just don't want to see money and resources pulled from public schools to the detriment of public schools. If there's some way that we can balance it where we have good charter schools and good public schools, then I think we all will be supportive of charter where they're warranted. I will say that at this time, unless I receive some additional information, I'm not in favor of vouchers.
You're not?
Yes, because vouchers, the way they've been presented in Tennessee, would allow children to go to private schools and religious schools of their choice. And I'm just not sure that we should use taxpayers' money to send our children to private school settings. Okay. And the fact that schools will be allowed to cherry pick and pick the best students to go to those type of facilities.
And then what do we have left in the public schools?
The struggling students.
The struggling students. But we also have a new superintendent in Metro-Nashville.
Yes.
And I think he's just done his report card for the first 100 days and where things are. And he seems to be off to a pretty good start, a running start of hearing what the community wants.
Yes, I think Nashville is very excited about Dr. Sean Joseph.
Yes.
He comes with just incredible experiences. I really like, though, that he listens. He's had listening tours for probably his first 6 or 7 months that he's been in Nashville, listening to parents, listening to teachers and to principals, and making them feel like that they really are a valued part of the whole educational experience. So we're excited about him and what he can bring to Nashville, Davidson County.
Great. Okay, well, let's switch a little bit and talk about the arrest charges. This is I was looking at this code. I'm sorry. Yeah.
This is at this past General Assembly, I had the honor of serving as president of the Tennessee Black Caucus, and one of our legislative agendas was to try to reform the criminal justice system. Right now, the criminal justice system, I won't say it's a black and white issue, I'll say it's a poor and rich issue. If you have money, you can get an attorney, and most times you can avoid prison sentences, or certainly a reduction. And if you're poor, a lot of time people just sit in prisons because they don't have the money to hire an attorney.
Right.
And so what we were trying to do is to have a more even playing field. And we presented 40 pieces of legislation, and of that, 7 pieces were approved. And the one that I'm most excited about is the one that I sponsored personally, and that was ban the box. So that if somebody has been to prison, they come out, they're looking for a job, and on the application, the interviewer cannot ask them about their criminal background until they're serious about hiring them. Now, once they're serious about hiring, they can do all the background checks. They can do drug and alcohol studies to see, but until they're serious about it, then it kind of gives them an opportunity to get their foot in the door.
Oh, great. All right, so that legislation has passed.
That has passed and it became effective July 1. There were 7 other pieces of legislation. One, looking at the workforce and what people who have been to prison and are back out, what that does to our whole workforce, trying to get them ready. I think most people's idea is that these people are just deadbeat, but they're not. Some of them have made foolish judgments, errors in judgment. They've paid the cost, they pay their court costs, they pay the time in prison, and they want to work. And so we want to try to integrate them back into society.
Okay.
There was another piece that I thought was that's going to really help. There's a long laundry list of jobs that you cannot work on if you've been to prison. So Representative Agberry from Memphis was able to get that number reduced, including barbers and beauticians. So I think that will make it easier for barbers to have their own business, to be entrepreneurs, and beauticians to have their own businesses and be entrepreneurs, even if they have a criminal background.
Oh, that does make a big difference. That's good to hear. Okay, and one of the other issues, and now the Metro Council passed legislation that changes how marijuana, if you were arrested for having less than an ounce.
That's
it's
right.
not a criminal charge.
That's right.
I'll make sure I get this correct.
You do have it correct. Okay. In the past, it was automatic, and now since Council has passed this law, the Metro Police have a discretion, their own discretion, of whether they want it to be criminal or whether they just want it to be a citation, where you would pay $50 and it would not go on your record as being a felony or criminal. It would be just a misdemeanor. It would be just like if you threw paper out your car window, then you would pay $50 and it would not be considered as a crime. And we believe that this is really going to help. One, it spanks people on the hands to get their attention that you need to discontinue this type of behavior. And the other is it doesn't permanently, in a permanent way, penalize them, so that it will affect their ability to get into college, their ability to work, and sometimes even housing, having a felony on your record. The Attorney General has sent an opinion that they don't think that the city has the right to do that. We saw the Memphis mayor pull their legislation back that their Memphis City Council had approved, but our mayor, and I just really want to commend her, has said we will
Megan Barry.
Yes. And this was also a good year where we elected our first female mayor.
Yes.
But she has said that we will continue to observe this law, and the Metro Police will continue to observe it as well. So
and so it takes effect in January, or has it?
I don't know the answer to that. I really don't know the answer to that.
All right, that's fine.
I assumed it was immediately, but I'm not certain about that.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure either. That's why I asked. Well, and the state legislature is not going to take this issue up, or do you anticipate that they will?
Some legislators have already indicated that they intend to sponsor this legislation to take all of the confusion out of who has jurisdiction to pass this laws such as this. And so if we see it on a statewide basis, then that means that not only will we observe it in Davidson County or Shelby County, but it would be the entire state of Tennessee. So I think in state government we're also going to see more emphasis on trying to do something about juvenile justice.
Oh, really?
We have a lot of laws in Tennessee that negatively impact our young people. So I think that there's going to be some emphasis on trying to do that.
When you say there are a lot of laws, is there one that stands out?
Well, one that stood out that the Tennessee Black Caucus tried to address last year is when young people commit a murder. Right now they're given 50 years, and it's unlikely that they ever get out of prison. Most of them die in prison. Yeah. And so that there was some discussion on trying to reduce that number somewhere around 25 or 30 years.
Right. So it's mandatory. If you're under 21 and you commit a murder, you're going to jail for 50 years.
Yes. So I think that we may see some legislators addressing that issue and trying to get that number reduced. One of the ones that was dear to my heart had to do with the school zone, where that if someone is using or selling any kind of drugs within 1,000 feet of a public institution, then they had mandatory sentencing. And we would like to take that mandatory sentencing and have that eliminated completely. Because right now there are institutions, there are public libraries, there are daycares, there are community centers, there are schools, just all over the whole city. So we really have just created a zone where it's easier for a person living in the city than a person living in a rural area to go to prison. So we'd like to make that a little bit more fair. Okay.
Now, is there any other legislation, any other issues that you're proud of that were accomplished during 2016? Because then I want to ask you about your predictions for 2017.
Well, again, I'm very proud of the progress that we made in the Tennessee Black Caucus, and I will also say that Governor Haslam put emphasis on reforming the criminal justice system. And I think one of the pieces that will help most is there are a lot of individuals who go to prison, they come out on probation, and they may do something very, very silly or unintentionally to violate that probation, and they go back to prison.
Right.
And so I think we're going to see more reform, particularly in parole violations. We just had a perfect example of this recently. There was an individual who sold drugs. He was released in 2012 on probation. His wife accused him of domestic abuse.
Yes.
He went back to prison and spent 2 years. Although she recanted and said, I lied on him, he really didn't touch me or harm me anyway. We seen this individual spend 2 years in prison for something that he didn't do.
Right.
So we've got to come up with a way of due process, a way of reforming probation, some way of getting our parole board to look at these cases when they have evidence that
with a little more urgency. I looked at the timeline of that particular case, and I thought, okay, so there's a month between meetings to discuss it, and another month, and another month, and it just dragged on where this person's life was in the hands of people who saw no urgency to get him out of jail.
Exactly. And this is a young person again, whose life we certainly hope will not be damaged as a result of this. He was freed the night before Thanksgiving. Okay. So thankful that he was able to spend Thanksgiving with his family. Yes. And I was reading the other day of an incident of a young man who was picked up for some reason. I don't know. It was something very minor, like a broken tail light or something similar. He was put in prison. He could have admitted that he committed a crime that night and gone home, but he refused to do that because he didn't feel like he was guilty. And so he stayed in prison 3 years without being charged. After 3 years, they dropped the charges. He went home, and within a few months, he had committed suicide. So his mental health had deteriorated.
Oh, wow.
So we just got to do something about this so that we don't have a prison made up largely of poor people, African Americans, and Latinos.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything else that you're looking at for 2017? Now, will you still chair the Black Caucus?
We will have elections again in January, and there will probably be a new chair that will move in. I suspect it will probably be our vice chair, who is a Representative Ramesh Agberry from Memphis. Who took our beloved Lois D. Berry's place. So, and she's done a great job of being a vice chair, and I certainly support her as being the chair. Well, again, I think the most important thing that we can do is to continue to try to improve the quality of life of women and children in this state, and I'm going to do everything that I can to do my part to make sure that happens.
All right. Well, great. Thank you so much,
Thank
Representative Gilmore,
Thank
for
you
joining
again.
us. I appreciate this. Again, State Representative Brenda Gilmore has been our guest, and we've been talking about 2016 and looking forward to 2017.
Yes.
And thank you. We'll see you again, and I'll see you the next time.
Thank you, and Happy New Year's.
That's right. Happy New Year. Wow. I can't believe